Okay, we're going to go on to our first panel discussion, which is sales in schools and colleges. I'd like to introduce our panelists to the table. We have Dr. Andy Ray, Charmaine Morgan, and the principal of the Bob Evington Academy, Vonley Joseph.
Hi, good evening everyone. Hi, my name is Colette Machado and I'm the publisher and editor of Sales Mastery magazine. It's a magazine, it's the go-to resource for sales professionals and leaders and business owners to help them improve their selling skills.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it on? Okay. Hi, this is Andy Ray. I'm actually retired from IBM. I was an IBM program director. Now I work for them as a consultant. But my background is I'm a banking technologist. I've been working for HSBC and then Visa. And so I was on the other side of sales most of the time. But for the last 15 years or so, I'm as a consultant. I'm doing the selling because as you know, consultancy is basically selling a service apart from hardware and software. So I get to know more about selling now. So I was not a trained salesman before. So I know the problems of selling and how the other, I can remember how I used to look at a salesman and what as a salesman I can do for my clients and so on. And the other one is also part-time from time to time rather. I also teach leadership and management at for postgraduate level. So there also, I noticed that there are very much emphasis on marketing support sort of aspects, but very little on selling. That's why I was very enthusiastic about Vonley starting this sourcing, which is specifically made for sales training, which is different. It's more old-faced sort of field training than marketing and on a desk sort of thing. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Vonley Joseph, the principal at Bob Evington Academy. As Dr. Andy Ray said, we sat down and brought the cooperative together over a period of time. It hasn't happened just over tonight. As you'll see, it's taken a series of years. A lot of hard work, a lot of discipline, perseverance, the right attitude to get here today. And one of the key areas that we started from was a program called Get Britain Selling, which was started out as a campaign, and now, as you can see, we're now a collective. So the focus really is, for us, one of the key areas was on getting sales into schools, colleges and so forth, which would be one of the key area questions. But more importantly, it's getting people to recognise sales as a profession and also promoting the diversity in sales as well. So for those of you who wonder what the COD is about, as in guests coming in, I'm sure the achievers and so on will be able to tell you, because they've been through mastery programs that Bob's diligently has led over the years. And now we're at the stage where we're moving away from the development and we're more going to be moving into making things happen practically. So everybody in here is an earpiece and a voice and to testify to what is going to be happening coming forward in the not too distant future. So thank you all for coming, and as I said, please listen diligently and we'll be happy to have your feedback at the end.
Just to echo what Vonley said, there will be a chance to ask questions at the end, so please write down anything that you want to ask at the end. On to the questions panel. So our first question is, why are sales not being promoted as a profession in schools and colleges?
Okay, so I believe there's at least 3 reasons why. Firstly, in terms of sales in the UK, there's a real negative perception of sales. When we think of sales in the UK, we think of Del Boy, Only Fools and Horses, sort of doing dodgy sales. So the image of sales is kind of that car, sort of sleazy car salesman, and just real negative perceptions around it. Also, in terms of the words that go along with sales, there's the words of sort of like coercion and influence and sort of persuasion. And so again, teachers, head teachers and so on, they're thinking, well, do we want to associate children with that? So why bring sales into schools if those are the kind of connotations that permeates within schools? And thirdly, in fact, within the UK, sales is not a recognised and not a respected industry. although since being the publisher of Sales Mastery magazine for the last sort of year and a half, I mean, I've learned tons and tons about sales. I know there's many more experienced people here in terms of sales, have been in sales for years. But I realise that yes, there's lots going on within sales within the UK, but of course in the States, sales is the profession to be in, more or less. So I think the respect that sales has in the UK is just not there yet, and hopefully that's to change. Okay.
Yes, Andy, go ahead.
Hello, yeah. Taking a cue from my sort of previous speaker, as I sort of alluded to it before already, was sort of, apart from selling consultancy, when I went to teach part-time, I was almost appalled that the whole focus of so-called even marketing was very academic. And then I realized why, because as a country, we have been very proud of Oxford and Cambridge and all that. And even 50 years ago, it was only proper degrees which were sort of rated. Then, even BTEC was introduced, or NVQs, the sort of seen sort of being lowered down, a bit snobbish about anything which was more practical, and sales is actually, as I said, cold-faced, so which was not academic. And what I found is that, I started teaching only about 5 years or 7 years ago, and so-called BTEC, which was almost invented to bridge that gap, has been, over the years, again, because of our inner tendency to be a bit snobbish about academics or degrees, we have actually academized even the BTEC. So when I was teaching even, say, levels of leadership and management, sometimes they had competency-based and knowledge-based 2 streams, but even the competency-based was not really practical. It was a theoretical essay about how you hypothetically do it somewhere. It's not really training. So because we tend to always gravitate towards marketing, which is desk-oriented job, because the decision makers are still, they're all just bound themselves. So they only think of their world through their prism. So that's our natural tendency. So we got to break that.
Thank you.
I'll tell you a bit of the history that we've been experiencing over the last sort of 5 or 6 years that we've been seeking to get sales into schools and colleges. And it has been such hard work on getting people from, take for example, the job centre. I'm going to deal with the public sector first and then I'll talk to you about the private sector. We have been around job centre after job centre. We've spoke to numerous senior people in the job centres. I understand it's a school back colleges, but understand what I'm saying here, because there are a lot of dropouts from schools and so on. And it has been such hard work getting the workers in that sector to recognise that there are so many equitable jobs that young people can perform and excel in. We've had promise after promise, and it ends up where we end up having to go outside the job centre or outside schools and colleges and universities to have to recruit. We go in, we speak to teachers, we speak to lecturers, time after time after time again, and if it suits their agenda, like they have an entrepreneurial week or something along those lines, they'll allow us to come in, but then it fizzles out. No matter how many jobs you offer them, we have a program called Street Markets to Stock Markets. And time again, we promote, we emphasise, we really sit down and show how much hard work we do, because when we work with a candidate, when they come out of school, college or university, we don't just leave them there. We have a fantastic program called the Sales Mastery Graduate Pathway. It's actually an elite program. And you'll see some of the evidence of that later on with the achievers. And what we have found is they will undermine every single step of the way of the work that you do. So if you really want to get into schools and colleges, what we've found, you have to go direct to the individuals themselves, or more importantly, you have to go into the communities on the estates, and we've pounded estate after estate, and it's painful, because you know, I mean, you take the City of London, the money's in the City of London. If you look around the City of London, There is so much poverty, but yet still the money's here. Now, a lot of these youngsters, they're selling illicit products that can be transferable skills into legitimate programs. Now, it's not that the demand's not there for good sales talent, because it is, but it's not being promoted effectively. And so, for me, why is it not being promoted in schools and colleges? Because your teachers, most of them, and if any of you are in there tonight, I'm not going to apologise, right? You're failed. You don't understand selling. Right? I'm not knocking you in the perspective, from the angle of, I'm not putting you down, but you need to understand selling is a very, very unique area for young people to get into. And it brings out a level of talent. It covers so many different agendas. There is a beauty, it's an art. And until you start to recognise, or the society starts to recognise sales as an art, we're not going to get anywhere. So I ask every single one of you in the room today, I want you to lobby, and I really want you to really press and ask, why is it not in schools and colleges? Because people who get into the industry and get seriously, they become very successful. The testimony is there.
Thank you. Our second question is, why is inspiring and empowering young people into sales important for the future of the UK economy?
So just to add on to what Bonnie's saying, I mean, at the end of the day, we all know Brexit is coming, yeah? So there's going to be numerous trade agreements that's happening across the world, you know, countries trading with countries and so on. So young people need to be part of this. And if they are equipped with the skills of selling from schools, from colleges, from universities, and they can then go on into the wider economy and really, you know, grasp all those skills and really be a future part of what's going on in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, adding on to what has already been said, and very aptly said, there are two things. One is UK specific is a country which has 78% of our GDP is service-oriented, and service is a form of selling. And it's not just the GDP. Very unusually, even employment, 79% of UK's employment is from the service sector. Only production and construction is 20% of GDP, and 20% of even employment, and agriculture 1%, like that sort of thing. So our future of the country as such is actually dependent on selling, retail sales, service and everything. And the other one is the world is changing now. This so-called job security is gone now. Not just we are building gig economy and all that, but it is here to stay. So selling is the only way you be your own, you fix your own habit of your own fate sort of thing. You become your own master. The sky is the limit in terms of commission, earning. Even the marketing director gets less than the sales director in every company, big company, and so you control yourself. And also because of this technology nowadays, there's so many platforms. You go to lead pages, get response. You start your own website. You can do so many things, and so our country needs that. We are rightly poised for that. And we have to do it for the future. The young generation have to shed their illusion about a secure 9-to-5 job. They got to be on the road, basically, and sales is the only way.
Thank you. Bonnie, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah. How many of you in here have a pension? Right? Well, you don't have to just share with me. Well, let me tell you, young people are going to be your pension. And for us to get the economy going, we need to sell. I don't know if you've looked at the poor exhibition of our politicians and whatever, and I'm not in here to get into politics. There's two things I don't like to debate, and it's politics and religion. But they need to learn some selling skills as well, primarily the art of negotiation. And I think going forward over the next couple of years, we're going to see that that's going to become very evident, that negotiation is people. Now, young people out there, especially, I keep bringing it back to areas around the city and impoverished areas and so on. You've got a lot of young people out there who actually are already doing some sort of selling. They just haven't encapsulated it to recognise that this can be a profession. So for us to get going, we need to capture that. And it's not just the so-called, I don't like to use the word disadvantaged, but let's just say those from not so well backgrounds. What about the graduates? Let's talk about graduates unemployed. Let's talk about the graduates who've worked so hard, put themselves in debt to actually get out there and make something of their life. How many of them is the sales not being promoted to as a profession? How many of them really have the ability and don't recognise that they have the ability yet? So unless we start to pay attention to detail and selling and stop glossing it over with all these titles, business development, marketing, this, that, whatever. Selling is selling. It sells. Let's not be ashamed of the word. We need to get that into schools, colleges, universities, get it out on the street, get it amongst young people. Say, look, you guys are already selling. You have the transferable skills. Yeah? I'm not just saying illicit product, because you've got a lot of graduates who are going out, starting up their own businesses, and they're being made redundant before they start, because they're not being taught to sell. They'll come, I do a bit of surgery once a week in North Westminster, and I'll have people come in and they'll give me the glossy business plan, they'll give me all these areas, but they haven't thought about the sales aspect of it. Now, a lot of them don't have the selling skills, per se, to start with, but working at it and developing it over a period of time, they'll get better and better. So if we want our businesses to strive, especially our micro SMEs, and they're the ones we're focusing on, one of the key areas that we're going to be focusing on, especially from the cooperative, is going to be selling. A lot of people come into me and they say to me, oh, but the cooperative, can you do this, can you do that? I say, yeah, but once you learn to sell. Because if you haven't learned to sell, you haven't begun. Yeah? And I've spent the last 5 or 6 years being an evangelist. And it's like I've forgotten how to sell now. Yeah? But it's time to get back to selling. So what I've realised is it's time to lead the way. And we're going to go out and set an example, because these young people, they need to be shown the way. And unless we as the adults are showing them the way and not treating sales as a gutter word, not undermining it, and actually, well, hold on, this is a profession that can empower you. This can make you. Even in sales, a job interview, you've got to sell yourself. If you're going into social life, you've got to sell yourself. You've got me. 30 seconds. It's a passionate program. Right? You've got to sell yourself. Everything you do, selling is the way forward.
Our final question in this section, we will try to keep it concise and punchy. The question is, what are the benefits of introducing sales into schools and colleges? You might just want to, some of the points might have been covered already, but just to wrap up, what are the benefits of introducing sales into schools?
Sorry, not a lot of young people, but some young people are using it in very, sort of terrifying ways. But, I was at my son's school last week, and I pick up children from school, and it was Comic Relief Day on Friday, and the children were selling cakes. And I was there thinking, wow, look, literally it's a sales thing going on here, but have they been taught any skills? Why not? Isn't that something that could be introduced, even before, week before, month before? So, in terms of the benefits, there's a huge range of benefits that, of course, come to children that they're taught taught sales at school. Art of negotiation, art of listening, closing techniques, all different things. And so basically, the benefits of sales are huge, and it's a must, right now. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
As the compare actually said that we have touched upon these problems already, or issues rather. Yeah, what I would like to add is that we have established that the economy needs salesmen or women, salesperson. And our future generation also got to be on the sales track for their own survival and prosperity. Now, wouldn't it have been better if they started early than pushed into a sales-oriented job at the age of 25 when they had no idea? Ultimately, most of the jobs will be pushed towards selling because to earn more revenue in a competitive world. Rather, they start at the age of 15 or 12 to get acclimatized to it, and so it becomes their second nature. And secondly, Bond Lee correctly said that selling is an art, basically. which is right, but there's an element of science also. That's why the training comes in. And you know what happens, I'll give you an example of music. Music is very talented, you know, you can't nurture it, you got to be a natural musician and all that. And to be a famous musician, you got to be having some inner talents. But look at this, a strange phenomenon. After the Brit Academy was founded, we got Amy Winehouse, Adele, Katie Melua, all coming within 3 years of talent, because we could actually nurse talent better. So they know how to do the proper arrangement, all this, instead of just writing a piece of lyric and just strumming. So same thing, everybody won't be a great salesman, but even the mediocre person who would struggle if they are pushed into sales at the deep end at the age of 25 and losing jobs, they'll feel okay at least to hold on to their job and make a living if they learned all about this starting at the age of 15, basically, in a scientific manner.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy.
Taking on from what Dr. Ray was saying, yes, he's right, there is a science to it, and at Sales Mastery, that's precisely what we teach, the science. And there'll be some, I don't need to go into that, there'll be others come later who will testify to that. The benefits of introducing it into schools and colleges is you're going to get young people. One key thing for me, I mean, at 16 years old, I'll briefly tell you before my daughter waves at me, she's somewhere over. I took on a job at a printing company in Picton Place called Scale Reprotech. I was there for about 3 weeks, and cut a long story short, at that time Sony Walkmans were about, and we used to have to go in and pick up these things and drop them off like a delivery boy. And one day I probably was playing the music a bit too loud, and one of the architects got up and slapped me on the back. And you know, I walked out of there, I rolled my fist up, I didn't hit. It was a place in Manchester Square, it's still there now. I've taken enough students there to tell them the story. But eventually I ended up walking around the West End with my eyes all puffed up, and 3 hours later, someone said to me, look up, and I saw a sign saying sales reps wanted at 25 Margaret Street. It was a company called Showcase. And I ended up putting a bag on my shoulder and going around selling them. The ironic story of it is when I went up and spoke to a gentleman called Peter Tillier, I was so angry, he said to me, go home and come back tomorrow when you're in a better mood. So I came back, and I saw a Ferrari downstairs, and I saw the bin, and I saw the clone, and I thought, that's got to be done. The next day I was right about the Ferrari. I don't know if anyone remembers Linda Lusardi. He had a wife like Linda Lusardi, and it all came together, and I ended up, within 6 months, becoming his supervisor at 16 years old. Now, I fell into sales by misfortune. Now, the benefit of introducing sales into it, what you've done, you've saved one kid from an inner city. Now, it's not just inner city kids, because you've got people in high society who can't sell. If we don't learn to sell in this country, our country is going nowhere. That's why we try to get Britain selling. You know, selling is certainly driven by, it seems, those who really have to have the guile, the vigour. They've had to battle so many barriers to get through. Why? Why can it not have the support from the state, primarily, right? And businesses setting up focus programs that develop salespeople, performers. Because if we don't start to perform in this country, hey, we're going to get left behind. We're only a little island. We want to talk about boxing globally and Brexit. Well, if we're not selling, how are we going? Yeah, what are we going to do? Have a handful of salesmen go out there and work? You know, we need lots and lots of salesmen. Everybody's got to be a salesman, even if it's down to the hospitality, bringing people into the country and coming there in tourism. If they don't sell the country, there's going to be no one want to come here. Right? You know, there's lots and lots of things. Even the person in McDonald's handing over a burger. Yeah, they need to understand the level of selling. We call it customer service, it's glossed over, it's selling. Right? That's the reality of it. Why do we keep coming up with these different topics? So the benefit of having scales in society, you're going to get a better economy, we're all going to get better pensions, and we'll have a better society, because people will feel better within themselves. It's an inner thing. The science comes from within. A lot of people out there are braiding, we think we have to be like the image that surrounds us. We don't have to be like that. We are who we are. What sales can do is tell you who you are, and then you can go out and become an achiever, because that's the key.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, the floor is open. Are there any questions? We've got time for maybe 1 or 2 questions before we take a recess. Yes, lady at the back. I think there's a...
I just wanted to ask a question. This is great, and from my experience, like the 5 a day, which I read, people comes up with brilliant things, right? You're talking about a system, the school, the colleges, but you're talking about the teachers, the people who work in those institutions, okay? When you start something, everybody grabs and runs, and you get pushed aside. Now, we know that the government has money to help the young and to teach them many things, and this is a great thing, which you call marketing, but the sales is a good thing. But what I'm saying to you, in all this that we do, you're going into a system to work, and what is going to happen there? They're going to take it from you, and they're going to teach it themselves, like the 5-a-day I brought out, teaching the school. You don't get no money because they're teaching this in the school and colleges now. So how are you going to protect that? It's all part of science.
But that's precisely what we've been doing. Strangely enough, the jobs are there. Okay? There's been no problem with the jobs. And believe you me, I've had people around me saying, "Come on, where's the money? Get on with it. Get the money in." But the key is you've got to have a pipeline of soldiers and a pool of talent. Now, what we've done, what we've had to do is come into the community, and there's people who testify that today, where we've gone into the community itself, we've had to look at the housing associations themselves, tenants management organisations, people on the ground at the grassroots to get directly to the talent. So that's really what's taken a long time to implement. So if you rely on the schools and colleges, yeah, it can take a very, very long time, and they're there for that. But if you go directly on the estates, go directly on the streets, and start creating your own pipelines of talent, that's the way forward. So that's what we've done. We've created a system and a pipeline where we can go directly on the estates or to the individuals themselves, where they can come in and they understand that there's a structured pathway, because it needs to be structured, and that can take some time. You may think you have it right to start with, but it takes a series of time. But I like to think that we refined it to a point now where we can go forward and say, yes, it's still a professional standard, but we're always tweaking it as we go along. But when you're talking about the system and process, it's in the science, and it's only when more and more talent comes through you find you facilitate that process, and that kind of determines the way. I hope that answers the question.
I'm talking about protection of...
Protection isn't protection, it's the young people themselves. Look, you've got an idea, you have to share it with people. You can go into IP and intellectual property and all that, but look, if you've got something that's good, people are going to want it. And if they want it, that's great. It doesn't mean they can do it, and it doesn't mean they can deliver it. We've had a lot of people over the years take what we've got. I've sat down with senior people, they've got wonderful programs, earning lots of money, but they don't have the formula. They've got the recipe, not the remedy. Right? And at the end of it, that's what we need to understand. That within every recipe, there's a formula. Right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to get the support from the powers that be. But that shouldn't stop you from achieving what you want to achieve. Yeah? If you're passionate and you believe in what you're doing, then you keep pressing forwards, because that's the way. There's only one way. We've got to find solutions. The solution is keep going, right, and keep pressing, because that's how we're going.
Unfortunately, we can't take any more general questions. The panelists will be available to speak to at different points during the evening. We do have to go for a recess now. I apologise. Shall we please give a warm round of applause to Dr. Andy Ray, Harriet Machado, and Bonnie Joseph. Just before we go on recess, please make sure you get your lush box of goodies. If you haven't opened it yet, please have a look, but be careful. We're going to be back shortly with a conversation about sales in post-Brexit Britain. Thank you very much.
I just got out